Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello and welcome to Adventure Bike TV. Now, a short while ago we heard an incredible story on Under the Visor about a trip and a stunning adventure through South America on a GS inspired sidecar outfit, which just goes to prove, as we always say, that any bike or three-wheel combination of a bike is an adventure bike. It sounded so fascinating that I had to go and try it out for myself.
Our lids open away from the bike, so they can be opened fully without interference, and they create a useful working area. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
In a curious twist for the Adventure Bike TV winter bike reviews, the weather is terrible. It's cold, it's alternating between rain, snow and sleet. And in all honesty, I'm a bit pissed off. We're even reviewing a bike we've done before. It's the R1150 GS. However, this one has got a sidecar on it. Now, for some people, putting a sidecar on one of these bikes would be as big a sin as towing a trailer on a Goldwing. But the only way to find out for sure is to have a go myself. And for that, I've got somebody who has a lot of experience with this bike, John Decker. John has been on Under the Visor before, so if you want to find out a lot more about it, that's the place to go. But just briefly, John, just tell us why the sidecar.
We did a trip in South America for 3 months, and my wife and I decided that we were going to go in a sidecar because of issues with her health, and the sidecar was the way to go. We did 3 months through Argentina, Bolivia, Peru and Chile, and had an absolutely amazing time. We could carry as much kit as we wanted within reason, and we had a really good time.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot more on the Under the Visor, so if anybody wants to find out about the story, the ins and outs, that's the place to go. Yeah. But you were telling me earlier about when you first got the sidecar and a little bit about the instructions you were given by the guy you bought it from about how different it is to ride.
Absolutely. Bennett Watsonian, who put this sidecar together, this is a Ural sidecar with a BMW motorbike. His first instruction to me was drive round the left-hand bends and take it very steady round the right-handers. You might need to use the rear brake. Then he asked how long I'd had a motorcycle, and I said, well, I've had motorcycles since I was a kid. And he said, you, and I quote, will be my worst customer, because as soon as you do motorcycling intuitively, this is totally different. We have to drive round the left-handers, slightly brake round the right-handers. Anyone that rides a sidecar does it intuitively, but it takes quite a while.
So you were describing to me, when you were telling me earlier, the reason why you have to accelerate left and brake a little bit on the right is because you've got that great big weight there, great big box.
So you drive round the sidecar and you let the sidecar drive round you on the right-handers. But when you throw in hundreds of bends, left, right, all the time, you have to think a couple of bends ahead and set your speed correctly. If you go into a left-hander a little bit quick, your instinct is to just brake or to slow down. If you do that, you go straight across the road and you wind up at the scene of your own accident. So you must be careful when you're all the time, not just when you're learning, but it's very interesting. So you'll love it.
Well, so one of the great advantages of this is you can actually ride with me next to you and show me the ropes.
I can shout at you as we're going along.
Right, well,
yes.
Let's get out.
No problem.
Foot on there.
Foot on there, hand on here, swing a leg in, and then slide in.
Don't touch that.
Yep, that's lovely.
In there.
Yep. There you go. There should be a snug fit in there.
You know what, that's really remarkably comfortable.
Yes.
Oh,
If you fold that all underneath.
crap that over my legs like an old woman.
Yes, nothing wrong with being an old woman.
So it was much easier to get into than I was expecting, and particularly me with my dicky old legs. And there's a lot more leg room than I was expecting as well. And I'm really rather comfortable and looking forward to going out for a spin, particularly with my old person's blanket over my legs.
You look distinctly like a granny.
I don't care. I'm really excited about this. So as we've been driving over the last half hour or so, my mind has been pretty much split in two. Half of my mind has been really aware of trying to translate what John told me earlier into watching him on the bike. So a bit more throttle as you go left, a bit less as you go right, and setting the handlebars and the steering up as you come to a junction. The other half of me has just been having the most relaxed, wonderful time watching the scenery go past. Not being uncomfortable, being warm, probably a lot warmer than John, and just really having the most lovely, enjoyable time. Now, it may surprise some of you about what this combination is actually capable of. So far we've been on the tarmac, but I know this is capable of going off-road, so now it's time to do a little bit of light track riding. Just wanted to say one thing about this being a passenger riding in this off-road, and I know we're only doing light off-roading, it's unbelievably smooth. I mean, the suspension's incredible. I was expecting it to be, I mean, yeah, you're bouncing around, but it's not uncomfortable. And you were saying, of course, to me, Wendy spent 3 months, you know, in this every day. And I'm just astounded. I'm astounded by it. So I've had my expert instruction from John, and now it's time for me to wiggle my way out and change over and have a go at riding. Oh, this feels beautifully familiar. Big old GS. Right, so give me a little assessment on my riding today.
Well, in my opinion, and I am very far from being an expert sidecar rider, your riding was good.
Thank you.
You did exactly as you were told. You went into the corners left hand a little bit fast and drove round. The right hand you decelerated, it worked perfectly. You didn't frighten me, which was very, very nice. My colleague, who shall remain nameless, did frighten me on the first left-hand bend. You did exactly as you were told, and it worked fine.
I have to say, I mean, I feel like I am only just learning, and the second I stopped my concentration, I could feel it going wrong. So, you know, not that I was not concentrating, but the moment you let it go, yes. You know, years away from it being second nature, and it was just wonderful to try something completely different.
It's very interesting. I can remember when I first started riding this motorcycle combination, I had exactly the same conversation with Ben at Watsonian, and he said to me, you didn't do too bad. So that, as far as I'm concerned, was very, very good.
Well, thank you so much for letting me ride it.
A real pleasure.
Wonderful day. Okay, a GS with a sidecar. Seems like a mad idea. And I had two questions in my mind. One was, could you have an adventure on it? And the second question is, would it be fun? Now, undoubtedly, even just after today's experience, I believe you could have an adventure on it. And because I know the owner of this outfit has had amazing adventures on it. South America, all over Europe. So yes, the first question. And having been riding it all day today, and being in the sidecar, it is a hoot. It's a hoot being in the sidecar, it's a hoot being on the bike, it's a hoot being on the tarmac, it's a hoot being off-road. So yes, it is a lot of fun. But you know what? Yes, you can have an adventure on it. Yes, it's a lot of fun. In my mind, actually, as I've been thinking about it, what's even more important about that is what it opens up the possibilities of. If you are unable to have, for whatever reason, an adventure on a bike, 2-up, and you want to have somebody with you, and you can't do it like that, you can do it with a sidecar. And of course I've seen people do it with two small kids in there, wife on the back and the guy riding. Or maybe the wife's riding, who knows. But it's what it opens up. It is 100% opened my mind to this type of riding. And actually I've only just scratched the surface of it.
Our Max Pannier has won many awards, including Ride Magazine Recommended and Adventure Bike TV's Best in Test. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Now, I had to say that was singularly one of the most interesting experiences I have ever had riding a bike. And I've got to say, if you get the chance to ride a sidecar outfit, just do it, because I guarantee you'll have a fun time. Now, it's time for Tom and Film School. Now, he has spent a lot of time talking about how to film your adventure. Now he's going to start telling you about how to edit it.
Hello and welcome to this month's Film School. So as you can see, we're in a new kind of location at the moment. We're at my editing desk because we're going to start talking today about how to edit your films. So the first thing to say is editing is a big subject, big subject, and it's not something that I can cover in the 5-10 minutes that I take on Film School. So we're going to split it up into blocks. Now I'm not going to lie, this first one is probably going to be a bit tedious because I'm not even going to really talk about editing. I'm going to talk about how to prepare to edit, and that is really massively important. But the absolute first thing we need to cover is, what do you edit on? There are so many editing programs out there, and it entirely depends on what you want to do and what level you want to edit at. But to be honest, the stuff that comes through with your computer, if you're on a Mac, iMovie, if you're on a PC, Windows Movie Maker, I think it's still called, they're actually pretty good programs. So don't waste your money on a big expensive program, just use the ones that are already embedded in your computer. If you do want to go a bit more advanced, there are some free ones that are available. Personally, the absolute best free one available is something called DaVinci Resolve, which is from a company called Blackmagic. Now, if you're happy to edit in just HD, which we've talked about the benefits of 4K and HD before, if you're happy to edit in HD, then this program is completely free. You only pay for it when you want to use it in 4K. And this has the added bonus that not only is it an okay editing program, it's one of the best color grading and color correction programs on the planet. It is absolutely fantastic for that. However, what I'm using here is Adobe Premiere Pro. This is a high-end editing software. Quite a lot of movies, Deadpool for example was edited on this. It's a really good high-end program that's used. You can buy this as a one-off, or you can actually get it on a monthly payment. I think I pay around £45 a month, and I get every Adobe program going, so Photoshop and all the things you might have heard of like that as well. So that works out pretty well for me. So the other thing you've probably heard people talk about is a program called Final Cut Pro. This is a very good program again. This is an Apple software rather than Adobe software, and it tends to get used by a lot of kind of high-end amateurs, but it doesn't have some of the functionality of something like Adobe Premiere Pro or even DaVinci Resolve. But hey, it's a good program. The only downside is you do have to pay one lump sum for it, and it's quite expensive, especially seeing as you download it from the App Store, so it feels like a very expensive app. At the moment in the UK it's £299. I think that's around $350 to $400 US. So it's quite a big upfront expense when you've got some fantastic free stuff like DaVinci Resolve for free. So probably personally steer away from that one, but it's entirely up to you. any editing program allows you to do the basics, and that's what you need when you're trying to tell a really good story. So the first thing we're going to look at is your editing space. You need to find a layout that works for you when you're editing. Find somewhere nice and quiet, somewhere where you're not going to be interrupted or have lots of noise, so that you can really get into the flow of editing. And it is something you get into the flow of. It's something that if you break that flow, it becomes very difficult to get back into it. You have to kind of watch what you've already done. Try and have as few distractions as possible. So let me run through my editing bay here. So this is my 3-screen setup. I use a Mac. I'm not even going to go into the Mac versus PC argument. Do what you like. So I'm very lucky because I've got a fantastic 3-screen setup here. And this works brilliant for editing because I can nicely separate everything that I need to. So if we look at my setup here, we have, first of all, we have on the left, this is all my files. These are all my files, all my videos that I'm cutting from. And if we go onto the center part here, we then have up the top here is what they call our source window. This shows me the original file that we're looking at. And its original color with no color correction, things like this. This is also changeable on here, so I can go up and change it to an effects menu that tells me whether I've got effects, any motion that's in there, anything that I've done to it, color correction, etc. And it also gives me an audio mix of here, so I can show exactly, see what all the audio levels are across my edit. Left here, I have all the infos and effects and history. This will all be different on different editing programs, but you should have the same functionality between all of them. It just, you might find them in different places. So this is how I've set up mine. So here I have all my audio effects and things like that, and then I have marker placements, which I don't have any at the moment. I have history, so this tells me exactly what I've done, so I can go back to any point and try things out. And then info, which just tells me all the kind of data about my clip, what frame rate it was filmed in, how long it is, what size, whether it's HD or 4K, things like that. So at the bottom here, we have our timeline. This is where you do all of your editing. This is where everything happens. This is where you bring your clips in, your audio in, and you mix them all together into something that looks fantastic. Obviously, this is something we'll go into more detail later. Over here, we have the final output. This is how it will look when it's all finished. So this is with the color correction on. It's your final output piece, and I like to have that nice and big on a separate screen so I can see it in really nice detail and know exactly what's going on. So what else do we have here? Well, you'll probably see lots of hard drives. There are hard drives here. What you can't see is a big shelf down here with 72 terabytes worth of hard drives. Those hard drives all kind of stay there, and I use them when I need them, but there's backups that I keep off site just in case there's any problems. So being organised is massively important, and this comes down really to your files. You need to make sure your files are in a good order so you know exactly where you were and things like that. It's not too bad when you're doing something short, but when it's something really long, you might be away for 2 weeks, 10 months, 2 years, it doesn't matter. You need to make sure you know exactly where you were, what the order of those clips is and things like that. It's massively, massively important. I'm now doing a screen capture, which only captures one screen at a time for obvious reasons. So what I've done is I've dragged over my browser here that has all my clips in, just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So this is my browser here. This has all my clips in. Now, this is where you get to go through your clips. You can, if they're totally awful, just delete them. Just get rid of them so they're not there, they're not wasting your time, they're not wasting space. If they are okay or good, you might want to kind of differentiate between them. And you also might want to start differentiating. At this point, you also might like to differentiate between all your different clips. So if you've got, for instance, this clip up here is an interview clip. Now, there's lots of things you can do. You can either group them together in their own bins, So for instance, you can open up a new bin, call it interviews, and now that bin can be opened. I like to drag it up so it sits next to here. And I'm going through this very, very quickly, but I think it's something we'll cover in more detail. I'm just giving you an idea of how to get yourself organized before you even start editing. So at this point, I'll drag any ones that are interviews into this bin. So that one's an interview. This one's an interview. We can also select this one, this one, this one, this one. These are all interviews where the guys are specifically talking to camera. Obviously you can keep going until you've done them all. And then they all get just simply dragged and put into a different bin. So you know that's where all the interview parts are. And you can do the same for instance, different people's video diaries if you've gone on a big trip. You can do it for action shots, slow-mo shots, time lapses. Nice, make them all nice and separate so it becomes a lot easier when you get to that editing stage. It's not just one big mass of files like here, like it will look when you first import everything. So it's really important before you even start looking at editing to make sure you're organized with all your files and make sure everything's in the right place and you've decided which are good shots and bad shots, what shots you might use, what shots you definitely will use, and what kind of shots they are. Get everything sorted in its place, and then the actual editing process itself becomes so much easier. So that was a very, very quick overview just about kind of getting everything sorted first, because if you don't do that, when you get to the editing process, everything gets a bit more complicated, and I thought it was best to kind of talk to you about that first, as it is a major part of editing. On big films, they have guys they employ just to do that. That's literally all they do. Now, we're going to go on to talk about lots of different things with editing. I would love to know some specific questions that you might have about editing and things that you want me to specifically look at. But what we will be looking at is more about how the timeline works, how to put clips into the timeline, how best to use those multiple lines to overlap footage and audio and things like that. And then we'll start to look at things like color correction, the differences between color correction and color grading. A lot of people think it's the same thing. It's not. They're two very different things. And then we'll look at sound and things like that. But anything specific, this is going to be a very basic overview of all of these parts. Anything specific that you have, please send me some questions and I'll do my very best to edit, to talk to you about them and help you with them. And I know this hasn't been, woohoo, we've learned how to edit. It's just not that simple, but I promise you, if you get organized first, the whole editing process becomes much easier. So we'll see you next month on Film School. Bye-bye.
Tom, thank you. Insightful and instructional as always. Now, Tom's back again, explaining a little bit about where Adventure Bike TV is heading this spring and summer.
Hi. So I realise you're probably sick to death of hearing from me, but I wanted just to say a few things about Adventure Bike TV in 2018. As a producer of the show, I'm the guy that films it, edits it, all of it. And firstly, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to everyone for all the support you've given us, for watching the show, for giving your feedback, good and bad. It's all useful. And yeah, thanks for being such a loyal audience. But we are always trying to improve, always trying to push ourselves and do better. So I wanted to let you know about a few cool things that we're going to be doing in 2018 so that you guys will hopefully enjoy the show better. So, first things first, we are bringing in top riding tips. This is starting in next month's show. We've had Joe Farmer come on board, the clothing company, fantastic supporters to sponsor that segment. And we're going to be using the amazing Sweet Lamb Adventure Rally School with Mark Molyneux as the instructor. Now, this is something we have been trying to do for, well, actually pretty much since the show started. We've had people come on board, say they wanted to do it and then pull out. We've had people we've approached about doing it as a kind of joint venture. They've said it's a great idea and then gone off and done it on their own, which is a bit harsh. We've had people come on board, say they want to do it and then ask us for a huge amount of money, which we just don't have to do the segment. So we're very lucky that it's finally come together with Joe Farmer and Mark Molyneux at the Sweet Lamb Rally School. It's going to be a fantastic segment, and it's not going to be any of this silliness like, all right, well, adventure tip 1, how to power slide around a corner. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be really useful things that can really help you when you're out there in the middle of nowhere, stuck in sand or stuck in mud or trying to traverse some really difficult terrain. It's going to be such a brilliant, helpful segment, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. Next, we have the return of Top Tech. This should be coming in the next couple of months, and we've teamed up with Oxford Products. So that's fantastic. Oxford Products have such a massive wide range of products that they do, from luggage to helmets and clothing and everything under the sun, which is fantastic. So Simon Belton from there has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Simon. So not only are they supporting this segment, they're also going to be giving the products that we have as prizes. So we'll be back to a point where we can offer prizes for you to win on a monthly basis, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, Oxford Products. Next, we're going to be working with a company which hasn't even been fully launched yet, which is called Expedition 52. This is run by primarily Claire Farrer, who you've probably seen on Under the Visor. It's going to be a fantastic website with a load of really useful information for adventure travellers. So we're going to be running a great kind of question and answer session with Claire. So every month we'll be taking one question that's been sent in from the audience of Adventure Bike TV about travel. And it doesn't matter what it is about travel. It might be about carnets, it might be about travelling in certain countries, it might be about insurance, healthcare, shipping, anything. There's a whole range of things. So anything like that, even down to how to use a shiwi. Claire is apparently, as she keeps telling me, very adept at using a shiwi. Anything like that, just drop us a line. We'll get it through to Claire, and those will be answered in those monthly segments, which will be absolutely fantastic. We'll also be chucking some quick-fire questions at her so we can get as many questions through the process as possible. So that, again, is something really, really exciting for Adventure Bike TV. You can start sending in your questions for that now, and as soon as we get the filming going, that'll be great. We are also, I'm extremely excited to say, we're going to be doing another bike build. So the last bike build we did was obviously the Triumph. The Triumph has gone and is now currently traveling all over South America. Check that out, it's awesome. We obviously did the budget bike build, and what we're doing now is we're going to split in the difference. We took a Triumph, which we'd had from new basically, and we had the budget bike, which was kind of under £1,000. What we're doing is we're looking kind of mid-range now. We're looking at about £4,000 mark. Going to try and find a bike and do it up into something really, really cool and really, really special. So keep an eye on that. That should start in next month's show. So it's going to be cool. What else? We have a whole range of segments planned that we'd love to make. We want to do a mechanic section that's kind of giving an emergency mechanic tips and tricks. Really kind of temporary repairs that will help get you out of the doo-doo. And things like that. So we have all these other ones planned. We're still trying to find sponsors and supporters because they cost money to make, so we need to make sure that we kind of get that money back from supporters. So if anyone knows of anyone or anyone wants to kind of join in, that's great. I also want to massively thank our patrons. It's just amazing. Every month they're just giving a little bit of their money to say well done, we like your show, and it's a lovely feeling. So thank you so much to everyone who's a patron. Anyone else who'd like to be a patron, please just go to the little address, which is going to be here somewhere, I imagine. And you can go on there and you can check us out. And if you want to, you can give us a little something. That'd be fantastic. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. Just continue watching the show. But thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for watching Adventure Bike TV. We're so proud of it, and we really love doing it. And I haven't done a message like this before, but I think it's nice to let you guys know that we are working on taking Adventure Bike TV forward. All the time we're working to take it forward and make it better and do more interesting things. So thank you very much for watching. One day we'll get a manufacturer who'll want to give us a bike that we can give away. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? One day maybe we'll do something. If we reach like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, we'll give away a bike. We're a long way off that, but I'll make that commitment. If we reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, I will give away a motorcycle. So yeah, only 86,000 to go, so it should be easy. Anyway, thank you very much, and I've wasted enough of your time. On with the good stuff in the show. Bye bye.
Now it's time for a break. We'll be back shortly with Under the Visor.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Welcome back. Now it's time for Under the Visor, and it's Roddy from Motofreight.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Motofreight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
Hi, I'm Roddy Warriner of Motofreight. What I do is, running Motofreight along with Kathy and Tim, and our job is just making sure that travellers get their bikes as best they can and keeping their journeys safe and secure as best we can. And we monitor our customers' travels around the world. We keep our eye on just in case they need repatriation. And that's what I did yesterday. We had went through about 100 files of travellers, customers who are still on the road, and just checking where they are and how they're progressing, and sort of being fairy godfather, I suppose. That's part of what I enjoy doing most, but I also enjoy just meeting and greeting the travellers as they come in, I like traveling myself, so I relate very much to all our traveling customers, whether it's short trips, big trips. They all have their own story if they've done a trip, and if they haven't, I always look forward to listening to the story when they get back. I started biking, my first big bike was a Suzuki GT550, which I'll proclaim that to be my first adventure bike, because there was a bike I loved to bits, and I just suddenly realized I could go anywhere. It's a street bike, but I could go anywhere, I could do anything on the bike. My 10-mile to work commute, I added 40 to 50 miles a day each way just to be on the bike. And during that time, there was in a magazine, there were two Italian guys, one on a Moto Guzzi, one on a Ducati, did Cairo to Cape Town. And at that time, in Sudan, there were no roads. And they crossed the Sahara, apparently with 2-meter poles, striped poles, every 2 kilometers through the desert. And their story is they had to have a compass. You pointed yourself at the next pole, and if you drove 2 kilometers and didn't find it, you turned back while your tracks were still in the sand. And there are no petrol stations. They had a 500-mile trip on 2 normal street bikes, and they covered the distance by towing each other. One towed until he ran out of petrol, then they swapped bikes. And I thought, what an amazing story. I must do that. My ambition was to cross the Sahara. And having done lots of smaller trips, finally, a friend of mine a few years ago, and 2 of us crossed the Sahara Desert, north to south, on 2 GS adventures. Very, very different to no roads. There's good roads now everywhere. There's full phone signal, and but we did it. There were sandstorms. It was a big adventure, totally out of comfort zone. But by the same token, every night when we stopped, accommodation was 3-star or better, first-class wine, good food. I love adventure biking. It's really fun. But bottom line is we did it. It was a few thousand miles north to south across the Sahara, and that was my ambition, and I did it. And I love Africa. I travelled in southern Africa. The wife and I, a few years ago, sent the GS out to Los Angeles, and we did a round trip around Utah, Arizona, basically all the desert regions. I prefer desert, maybe because it rains less, I'm not sure. But yes, and whenever possible, I just jump on the bike and head to the Alps or any mountains just for a bit of fun. That's not really adventure, it's just fun. But when I can, I'll go and look forward to stretching myself beyond my comfort zone as well. Having worked in freight all my life, and being a biker, I used to ride the bike magazines, and there were adverts saying Fly Ride Canada, Fly Ride USA. And I looked at the prices to rent a bike, to fly out, pick up a bike in Canada or the USA, and I worked out that then, this was going back to when the exchange rate on the dollar was 2 to 1, it's now 3 to 1 rather, and it was a 2-week break point. Now it's about a 3-week break point. If you're going for 3 weeks or longer, it's actually as affordable to take your own bike, and especially for longer, and if you're crossing borders, so I worked that out. I did some arithmetic, did 6 months worth of research, how to bring the costs down for crating and all that to make anything cheaper, because not everybody has a big budget, and set about and basically broke away from general cargo altogether. Thoroughly enjoyed what I'm doing. At the time there were a few travellers around, adventure travellers, but not as many. That's 10 years ago, and was not as many as there are today. And I'd actually like to think, I know a few tour operators have said because of what we do, we've made some of their tours possible, which weren't previously possible. So just by being there, and personally I've had to fly out to various parts of the world to supervise chartering a plane for the big tour operators, and we just love it. It's a hobby, it's what we do, and more recently, as an Australian tour company, we're in the credits of a movie they produced, and it's a job that we love, just love doing. It's our hobby, it's our bikes, and being with our customers who love being on bikes as well. Missing home, yes, I have a family. Missing home is always a tough one for most people, I think. But I'm quite comfortable with weeks at a time on the road. I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with months at a time, but it's actually quite funny because having met lots of travellers, one thing I've observed about travellers is people have been on the road for 4 months or longer. Doesn't matter what their plan was when they set out. If they've crossed the 4-month barrier, their life changes. When they get back, I've met a bank manager on a big salary, spent 6 months on the road, put a suit and tie on when he got back, could not walk into the bank. He went to work for a dealership, a bike dealership, for a fraction of what he used to earn. And we've seen customers who have been clerks or had various businesses of their own, but came back after 4 months, cannot do the same thing. They have to change their life to biking, and I think I've done that. I've changed my life to around biking. I don't like long trips. Myself, I wouldn't like to cross that 4-month barrier and not come back. I do like having some routes, but I'd like to be able to escape from time to time, just head for the hills, as it were. Most rewarding is the people, meeting the travellers, meeting them. We have travellers come to us, they just pop in for a cup of tea, and we found 90% of our customers are people we've met. So we go to as many bike shows as we can, Horizons Unlimited, Overland Magazine, and a number of others, where we meet the people, and we like to reassure them that we are bikers ourselves, and basically for them, their adventure starts with freighting their bike, and we can make that easier, and we do. We like to think that we're part of that, and when they come back to us and do it again. And the other thing is we're trusted. I'm really pleased that people have a lot of faith in us. We're being entrusted to keep quiet. We're very discreet. We have motorbikes that people do not want us to. They're famous. We've had to keep quiet. We've had for bikes for filming, for very, very valuable bikes. We have customers who trust us with their extremely expensive classics, and they keep coming back, and that is satisfying. I find that really rewarding, that people keep coming back to us and they trust us with their secrets when they're filming and things like that.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Motofreight, proud sponsors of Under the Visor. Okay, it is time for the Travel Journal. Now, the winner of our People's Choice Award was Anders, and he's back with another one of his journals.
Good morning, everybody. It's so peaceful here. Oh, it's so nice, and it's also 5:58 in the morning, so that might be contributing. factor. Right, so I slept here in Leksand in this my friends from the Leksands dive club in the clubhouse, and it was perfect, really nice. And I wake up to this. it out. This is where we're sleeping tonight. Betty will be sleeping here and I will be sleeping there. Let me show you inside. Ta-da! Nice. I've got 4 beds, 3 to put cables, bags and helmets, plastic bags on, and I'm gonna sleep here. They got Wi-Fi so I can do some stuff online as well. And Betty is sleeping here. Is that okay? Yeah, I think so. So this place is called Mosjöns camping and we're gonna have a look around. Check it out. Right on the lake.
Well, that's the end of the show. Now, if you're watching this in the first week of April, Tom and I will actually be out filming our next full TV series, The Great British Bike Off. So keep an eye out for us on Facebook because we'll be talking a little bit about where we are and trying to see if we can get some of you to come and join us. If not, well, we'll see you next month.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.